This month's theme is action. And as we were sort of brainstorming how to approach this topic, Baltimore Bike Party organizers sort of came up immediately. And it was sort of interesting. They're a very elusive crew. It's sort of, they embody this sort of silent leadership, which I really respect, actually. And so I'm really excited to have them almost debut themselves here today. So thank you guys for being here. It's a really big deal. The first time I ever went to Baltimore Bike Party, which, in case you are not aware exactly what that is, it is a monthly bike ride the last Friday of every month, where over 1,000 people gather and take a basically slow bike ride around the city. It's an amazing community event, and the first time I ever went, I was really struck by how celebratory it was, how effective it was at bringing out all kinds of people who just love to ride bikes. There were the really old people, and then there were the kids doing the wheelies, and then there were people with crazy costumes, and the hipsters with the bike hat thing, and it was incredible. It was incredible, and you ride through these neighborhoods that you don't usually get a view of from that angle. And I think that I was really struck by how powerful that experience was. And then at the end, it was this raucous party, and everybody's dancing, people who wouldn't normally be dancing together, and they're I don't know, conga lines, and it's really an incredible event. I was in tears, I think, the first time I experienced that, at how powerful of a community event that was. So I'm super excited to have them. So first up, I'll just introduce you guys really quickly, and then I'll pass over the mic, is Tim Barnett. Tim Barnett really sort of spearheaded the whole project, and he started Baltimore Bike Party in the spring of 2012. So after several attempts to successfully get the critical mass rides up and going, he sort of realized he needed to kind of rebrand it a little bit. So he put together themes, a few rules, actual routes, and then an after party with a really celebratory, positive attitude. And that really basically exploded everything. So I think it doubled in size each month. And by October of 2012, so only a few months later, he had 1,300 people. It's crazy. So you're riding on, I don't know if, has everybody been to this event? Yeah. It's so funny. It's you're riding on the street, and everybody's bike party! But nobody's drunk yet. I mean, it's amazing. And people are on their, sidewalk, and they don't know what's going on, but they're yelling bike party because everybody's doing it. It's amazing. So really, Tim's vision is to ensure that bike party becomes a staple of Baltimore culture, using the bicycle as a means of meaningful and positive engagement among all people. So really there is a lot of intentionality there. And then Kimmy, who's on the end there, is the volunteer coordinator. She joined Bike Party in 2012 as well, correct? Yeah, okay, more or less. So she manages over 50 volunteers every month, which we have 12, and I'm oh my God, girl, you're amazing. And then Michael Berlinger, who's in the middle and also joined in 2012. And they coordinate a ton of stuff, not only in sort of the party logistics, but also dealing with the city and permits and all that stuff. And so, with no further ado, I'd like to welcome Tim, Michael, Kimmy to the stage. Baltimore Bike Party. Have at it.
All right. Hello, everybody. So to start today, I'm going to sort of share a little experience that I had, which is, I assume that everybody here is living in or near Baltimore. But even if you aren't, you're familiar with basically what has been happening in Baltimore this year, which is, on April 12th, a man named Freddie Gray was picked up by the cops, and some stuff happened, and by the 19th, he was dead. And by the 25th, our city was so messed up that the uprising had began, the CVS was getting burned, there were kids running through the streets breaking windows. You know, everybody who was here kind of knows that, and I think that really around the country people still shared sort of like the pain that we were going through. But then, you know, as we were doing our thing, like a month later, you know, it's May, so May 29th, you know, here I am, and I'm on my bike, and I'm riding through these areas. Like, I'm going up Pennsylvania Avenue, and I go over Preston, and I go down Fulton Avenue, which is a block away from the police precinct, where at this point there's still like nightly protests with the entire block, you know, guarded off, hanging out in Harlem Park. And it's not just that I'm doing this. The coolest thing about all this is that, you know, here I am riding on the 29th, and I'm doing it hauling this music trailer behind me with like at least 1,000 other people that are all in costume. They're all having a great time. Like, they're spreading nothing but love. And like the neighborhood, you know, I would hear people say to me, like, thank you for coming into our neighborhood. You know, thank you for bringing this joy our way. And that's really kind of like what we're going to talk about today, is kind of how we get to that moment where like Bike Party has become this thing that is so much bigger than like ourselves, and how to create that. So the way that we're going to do that, which you'll see us sort of rotate around, starting with Michael, is the bike is really our tool for trying to change this city. And so we are going to be kind of putting a bike together as the different parts of what it takes to make Bike Party run. So if you're wondering what's going on over there, that's the metaphor we're trying to get across. Hopefully it'll be self-explanatory. But yeah, so how did Bike Party get started? Katie kind of alluded to this a little bit. But basically, I was working with a guy named Brian back in 2012, even in 2011, and we were working on trying to get people to come out to an event called Critical Mass. If you don't know what Critical Mass is, it is a protest-y kind of ride that happens all over the world. And the idea is you get as many people together as possible, you clog up the streets, and you say, we are bicyclists, we have a right to be here on the street, and F you if you don't like it. But as we were trying to build the numbers to that event, we found a lot of kind of pushback from people who are like, you know, hey, I'm not really like that into protesting on my Friday night. And so we began looking for like other models of how to change this. And I began to see these things called bike parties that were happening on the West Coast. And I pulled elements of what they were doing and began implementing them into what we were doing on this here in Baltimore. So I built this is like the 5th bike trailer I think that we've had. So the first iteration came back then. We started having a set route. We started having leaders. We started doing the themes. And then the biggest thing was in April 2012, we just changed the name. We were like, you know, if you want to do Critical Mass, you can go do it over here, but we're going to do Bike Party over this way. And it really started kind of small. It was a small idea at first. The first ride was 70 people. But as Katie said, the next month it was about 150, and the next month was 250 and 700, and it just continued to multiply until by October that year, it was 1,300 people. So what started as a very small framework grew, and we had to sort of change what we were doing in order to, you know, manage this larger thing that was going on. When I first started Bike Party, my idea really was just, you know, there are people who mountain bike, there are people who road bike, there are people who ride their BMX bikes, and they all hang out together, but they don't all hang out with each other. And my initial idea was I just want to get all the bikers together in one place. But as it sort of grew, so did the mission of Bike Party. And the mission has really become, as I said, using the bike as a tool in order to sort of break down these social, economic, racial barriers that exist in this city. You know, I'm sure there's other places like it, but Baltimore is the only city I've ever been in that is quite so like patchwork of just like black and white and rich and poor, and you don't go over that street and you don't go into this neighborhood. And Bike Party is really about using a big parade on bicycles to knock that down in our own little way. And that's really the framework of what we're doing here. So we have a framework, and when you're, this month is all about action. So when you're taking action, you need the right tool for the job. You have a framework, but what you also need is some sort of direction. You need some sort of mission and place where you're going. And that's really kind of what it became for us, was this, as we rode around, as I said when it started, it was very much about like, oh, we're going to go to this neighborhood and we're going to hang out in this cool park and we're going to get all the bikers together. But then what happened over time is we began to see that the people in the neighborhoods would anticipate our arrival. And there was, without us starting any sort of hashtag or chant or request, people just started yelling, "Bike party!" And when enough riders began doing that in the neighborhoods, they would begin yelling it back at us. And so now it's become something that is really not just about the people that are on the bike, but it's about the people in the neighborhoods that we're going to, and creating that interaction that's between us. Having that direction, I feel like, is super important for anything that you're trying to do. If you were to try and ride a bike without a steering wheel, without handlebars, I have seen bicycles with steering wheels, and I've tried to ride one, and it's not very good. But you have to have some means of controlling what you're doing. And for us, it was very much about having a clear mission of these are the things that we're trying to accomplish in order to figure out what it is that you're trying to do. How you doing over there? All right. Perfect. Kimmy is now going to talk about what else you need. Do you want to pass? I'll switch with you. All right. So yeah, what else do you need in your toolbox to get going?
So we need some wheels. We need to know what makes Bike Party roll. So one of the parts of that is our volunteers. So in addition to the organizers up here, we have a couple other high-level volunteers. Angie Cochran, who's here. There she is, yeah. She does our social media, make sure that everybody is staying connected and pumped up for the next bike party. We also have Carrie Harper, who's our treasurer, so that we ensure we have enough funds to fund every party. We have Anastasia Tenteros, who's also here. Here she is. She is our amazing photo booth expert. So she volunteers her time, her talents, and all of her equipment to put on the photo booth. You guys might have seen some of the pictures up here beforehand. And we also have Kristen Januszewski, who wrangles all of our food trucks. So in addition to some of those high-level volunteers, we have over 50 volunteers that we rely on to make every single party happen. So that's everything from the ride, pre-ride, and also doing everything at the after party. And so we've come up with a couple of key strategies to engage this many volunteers every month. One of those is being consistent and setting clear expectations. So we know that everyone needs to know exactly what they are going to be doing, what they're signing up for every month, and so we make sure that we have that information to them beforehand. The other thing is making sure that everyone is thanked. We want to make sure that people know that we really appreciate all of their help. And so we are very intentional every single month about going around, thanking them at that time, giving them their extra perks, and we have a more formal thank you in the form of a volunteer party. So we're not building a bicycle here, though, or a unicycle, sorry. We are building a bicycle. So the other part is our partners.
That's great, thanks. And that other wheel, the partner wheel, is built of many spokes as well. We have our local DJs that come out once a month and help us keep the party bumping after the ride. We have local food trucks that join us, and heavy seas that show up after party to keep the riders fed and hydrated. We have all of our venue partners that invite us into their spaces, their retail space, their communities. Some of those are community associations that we partner with, notably Seton Hill, that welcomes us every month at St. Mary's Park to kick off the ride. Tonight, we'll be riding into Greenmount West and joining their block party for our after party. It'll be super exciting. There are various city government officials that we deal with every month to get the party rolling, including for permitting, site approval, things like that. Recs and parks that provide the bike racks every month for us to lock up the bikes and keep them secure. And they recently started handing out free bikes for members of the community to ride with us that don't have bikes available to them. So keeping that ride as inclusive as possible, right?
So none of you have any excuses.
So the wheels are built, and they're kept true with a lot of strong relationship building and collaborating with all these partners that we interact with monthly, and all of the volunteers that spend so much time helping us out to keep the party going.
All right, how many people here have ridden a bike before? How many people here at one time or another have absolutely hated their bike seat? That's what I thought. Yeah. So you have your idea, you're starting to put something together, you've cobbled together, you know, enough that you're like, I could roll down the road with this a little. But much like with a bike seat, it's really important when you have something that you want to take action on, that it's kind of like if anybody's ever tried to find the right bike seat, it's a little bit of a Goldilocks thing, you know? You don't want it to be so hard that it basically splits you in two trying to accomplish what you want to do. But at the same time, you don't want it to be so soft that it's like a lazy boy, where you're literally just going to sit back, relax, you know, take a nap. That's not action. You know, so this is not to, you know, knock on food drives or anything like that, but, you know, I've seen things before where it's like an office is, oh, you know, hey, let's collect some canned food and go drop it off at the homeless shelter. And really, that's not action. That's just like patting yourself on the back for feeling like you're doing something good. There's a balance there that has to be like, you know, it can't be too comfortable or it isn't action. So much like with trying to take action, it's the same thing as finding the right bike seat.
So up next we have the brakes, and I'm very glad I'm not the one assembling these, because I find it's the most difficult part of the bike to put on. So I think that works well for our metaphor, though. Knowing when to kind of step back, squeeze the brakes is difficult to do. So when you have an organization and you know where you're going, you want to make sure that it's a sustainable movement. So part of knowing what your limitations are is part of that. So for us, we know that Bike Party has incredible potential, and we want to take on so much, but we also know we're an all-volunteer-run organization, so we don't want to do anything that's not going to be quality. So knowing when to squeeze those brakes, put on or take a step back and kind of figure out the smart maneuver is definitely part of having a successful movement or a successful organization. You also have to know what to do when somebody else squeezes the brakes for you. It's happened quite a few times with Bike Party, and I don't anticipate that stopping anytime soon. We've had venues drop out the week before the event. We've had security costs come back, and they said that it's going to be 4 times the cost that it normally is this month. But we were able to figure out how we're going to deal with that. We believe in Bike Party. We believe in making sure it happens the last Friday of every single month. So we went back to our partners, our volunteers, to our framework, and we figured out what sort of direction we were going to take from there. And so you have to know exactly who you're relying on, and make those situations ones of growth, not of hold on, stop, falling off the bike.
All right, Kimmy, that's enough about the brakes. They could be a drag. Let's not forget that the whole purpose of Bike Party is to have some fun. I like that one, huh? It's about having fun, right? If we weren't having fun, none of us would be doing this every month. It's a great forum that brings all of these people together, connecting the communities and neighborhoods and those personalities. We try to keep the fun going. We do various things throughout the month. We have themed rides. They change every month. We change up the course of the ride to bring us through different neighborhoods, different areas. We have the photo booth. Anastasia Tinteros dedicates a lot of her time, effort, her talents, and all of her equipment to build the photo booth every month and keep it themed. Thank you. Costume contests. And tonight in Greenmount West, we'll have a moon bounce. So come out, enjoy the moon bounce. So that's kind of, part of what makes it successful, though, is the fun. Tim alluded to the fact that, we're not a protest ride, we're not a memorial ride, and there are times and places for those, but we chose to focus on the positivity and keeping it fun. And that kind of brings us to the last part of our bike, is the drive chain and what drives Bike Party. And for us, it's not just our own fun at the party, but again, it's connecting with those people and engaging with them and watching them all have fun at our party. For me personally, I think, probably similar for most of us here, that it's riding through those neighborhoods and bringing people to places that they probably normally wouldn't go, and meeting people that they probably wouldn't meet on their day-to-day interactions and chores and whatnot. And again, for me personally, it's my two kids ride with us often, and getting them exposed to that element as well, and getting them out in that environment keeps me motivated to do this month to month. So.
And what motivates me every month to put so much time into this party is my strong belief in the positivity of Bike Party, and its effectiveness to be a catalyst for change. If you've all, most of you have been to Bike Party, yeah? It's this ball of energy. It creates the perfect atmosphere for people to get exposed, get involved, and celebrate all of Baltimore. Like Michael said, when I see someone who's on the ride high-fiving or cheering resident as we're going through their neighborhood, and that's an interaction that might not have happened otherwise. It's really important. I think that a high five isn't going to change all of Baltimore and break down all of those barriers, but I think those moments are really, really powerful. So being part of that, knowing that I am contributing to that moment happening, that's why I choose to act every month. Perfect timing.
Wasn't quite done yet. Don't ride this home, Michael. Yeah, and so in terms, for me, for motivation, a lot of it is the same as what they've said. I really love those moments as well. I love being on the ride and seeing a kid who has joined us in West Baltimore riding next to a man who might be like a doctor in Baltimore County, and watching them, share that experience together in a way that they normally would not. It's, this kid who came up to me once, and he's probably 12, and he said, hey, this is really awesome. And I don't even think he knew that I was the organizer. He just knows that I pull the music, and he was like, my dad and I drive in from Delaware every month to do this ride. Moments like that are they really help keep me going, but the thing about it is this event is not really these three people up here, with the success of Bike Party has been that it has caught fire with everybody. There have been a lot of volunteers that come through. There have been other organizers that have done their time, like Brian O'Doherty, Mark Hartley, Adam Hull, Anastasia, who we mentioned, still takes the photos, put in a lot of work as our treasurer for a while. But then, even outside the organizers, it's just, when Bike Party started, we've basically done no social media for it. It was just an idea that totally caught through word of mouth, and it was other people recognizing that this is something awesome, and then bringing their friends, and then they bring their friends, and we put through the bare bones of hey, we want to keep this positive, hey, we want to be respectful of other people. But it's everybody who sort of buys into that has really made this thing a success. So we kind of, we've talked about Bike Party here, and obviously we want you to come to Bike Party, but I feel like the point of this is not necessarily to sell you on Bike Party. Like, what I want to do is sell you on your own idea and taking action on that. And so Bike Party was, you know, half my idea, half taken from other people's ideas. But it's what I chose to take action on. And, you know, we tried to illustrate sort of the different things that you need if you want to take action on something yourself. But to me, like, really the most important thing is that you have to, you know, you have to kind of listen. You have to have your eyes open. If you want action to happen, you have to be aware of what's going on around you and what that need is, and listen to other people talk about what they talk about, and then figure out where that need is and act on it, and be willing to, you know, we were talking about the saddle, like, you have to have something that's comfortable enough that you're willing to put the long, hard hours, like day after day, week after week, year after year, sometimes to make these things happen. But for me, like, one day I will probably step down from this, but it will probably be to pick up something else. The thing that I really love about this city that we're in is that Baltimore is kind of like, it has endless potential energy. You know, it's like a little atom in a nuclear reactor, or if you're less science nerdy, it's like a popcorn bag in the microwave, you know? And there's all these people in this city that are just like waiting for that spark of something like great to get going, and then they will jump on with you, and they will be just as excited as you are about what you're doing. And that's like how a movement grows, you know? I could have done something different and less inspired and less cool. I could have stuck to critical mass, and I'd probably still be riding around with like my 12 friends, you know? But it's not that. And it's not that because I have personally talked to 2,000 people and said, hey, you should really come to this ride. Here's $1, come ride with me. You know, it's because they believe in what I believed in. And I mean, that's really the key to it. I think that's the success of Bike Party. I don't have anything else to say. Do you want to come to Q&A?